all the evil things in the world, some things are so twisted they sound made up. Today, we will examine the story of a little girl whose childhood was extremely dark. Her mother went to prison, and her stepfather took that as an opportunity to abduct both her and her sibling. What then followed would mark her life forever. Welcome back to the one and only Mr Storytell channel. Before I tell you all about today's story, please don't forget to subscribe. We deliver 2 super exciting stories weekly, so if you are a fan of true crime, horror, and other mysterious stories, then also turn on notifications to make sure you don't miss a single upload. Now let's dive into it. Franklin Delano Floyd was born in Barnesville, Georgia in 1943. He was the youngest of 5 children, born to an alcoholic father, Thomas, and his mother, Della. Thomas died when Franklin was just 1 year old, and his mother struggled to keep up with 5 children independently. After a few years of living with their grandparents, Franklin ended up in an orphanage where he was bullied and abused by both the children and staff. In 1959, Franklin ran away from the home and turned to a life of crime. He spent the rest of his teenage years and 20s moving in and out of prison. By 1974, after several prison stints, Franklin took the alias Brandon William. One day, at a North Carolina truck stop, he met Sandra Frances Brandenburg. Sandra had 4 children from 2 different fathers: Suzanne from her first husband, Allison, Amy, and Philip from her second husband. Sandra was having difficult times and was at risk of losing her children, so Franklin offered to marry her and raise her children. They got married, and Sandra and the kids moved in with him. In 1975, just a few months after Sandra and Franklin married, Sandra went to jail for 30 days for passing bad checks. When she returned home after her sentence, she found that Franklin and her children were gone. She reported Franklin to the police, but was told that she had no case, because as Franklin was their stepfather, he had every right to take them away. Sandra eventually found her middle children, Allison and Amy, but she never found Suzanne and Philip. Philip would eventually be found in 2019 after DNA results proved he was Sandra's son. Meanwhile, Franklin kept Suzanne and raised her as his own daughter. Suzanne's real name was Suzanne Savakis because her biological father was Clifford Ray Savakis. Franklin, now Warren Marshall, registered her in school under the alias Sharon Marshall. In high school, Suzanne was an intelligent student. She earned a full scholarship to the Georgia Institute of Technology to study aerospace engineering. Unfortunately, Suzanne fell pregnant before she graduated. It is not clear whether or not Franklin was responsible for the pregnancy or whether he abused her during high school. However, she had a best friend named Jenny Fisher. Jenny would later recall an incident during a sleepover where Franklin raped Suzanne at gunpoint. She later told Jenny that her daddy would not let her attend college. After she had her baby in 1988, Franklin and Suzanne moved to Tampa, Florida, where the little girl was put up for adoption. In 1989, Franklin married Suzanne, who was now working as an exotic dancer. The couple was living in New Orleans by now, going by the aliases Marcus Hughes and Tonya Dawn Tadlock. Before long, Suzanne, now Tonya Dawn Hughes, and Franklin moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. In their new town, Suzanne worked again as a stripper, and they had a son, Michael. Suzanne was a warm woman who made friends with a lot of her colleagues, but one of them, a woman named Karen Parsley, noticed how domineering Franklin was over Suzanne. Soon enough, Karen started advising her to leave Franklin, but Franklin had joined the Fraternal Order of Police. Although he wasn't a police officer, Franklin manipulated Suzanne into staying with him by threatening that he would use his connections to find her and her son and kill them both. Meanwhile, Suzanne was having an affair with a college student named Kevin Brown. In April 1990, Suzanne found the courage to run away with her new boyfriend and her son, Michael. A few weeks later, 3 people were passing by a highway just 100 miles from Oklahoma City when they found something that appeared to be a human body lying by the side of the road. They got closer and noticed a woman with groceries laid all around her, but she was still alive. They immediately called the police. When the police arrived, they identified the woman as Suzanne Sabakis. They immediately rushed her to the Presbyterian Hospital in Oklahoma City. She had several bruises and a large hematoma to the base of the skull, but these injuries seemed suspicious to hospital staff. Unfortunately, Suzanne died soon after. From everything they observed, the police suspected that Suzanne had been struck from behind in a hit and run while walking from a convenience store to a nearby Motel 6 where she was staying with her son and boyfriend Kevin. Franklin was the primary suspect for the murder, but was never arrested. After Suzanne died, Franklin put their son Michael into foster care and left Oklahoma. After a while, Michael's foster care parents started the process of adoption. As part of the adoption proceedings, Michael's DNA was compared to Franklin's to ensure he was the biological father, but the tests found out that Franklin was not Michael's father. Franklin later tried to regain custody of Michael, but due to his criminal record and the fact that he wasn't Michael's biological father, the request was denied. In 1994, Michael was in the first grade of the Indian Meridian Elementary School in Choctaw, Oklahoma, when Franklin abducted him. 2 months later, police found Franklin and arrested him. In 2014, he confessed to shooting Michael twice in the back of the head. Meanwhile, at the time of Suzanne's murder, both her and Franklin were suspects in the disappearance of 18-year-old Cheryl Ann Camesso. Cheryl was a former co-worker of Suzanne's who danced in the same strip club. On the last day she was seen alive, Cheryl was seen arguing with Franklin. She had reported Suzanne for falsifying her income, and thus Suzanne had lost her government benefits. Franklin was not having it. He went to the strip club to confront Cheryl and, in the heat of the moment, ended up punching her. Shortly after that incident, Franklin and Suzanne left town. Their trailer home was burnt down in what investigators would later discover was an intentional arson. Police would also uncover Cheryl's remains later, and an autopsy would reveal that she died from a severe beating and 2 gunshot wounds to the head. It took the police 4 years to arrest him. What tipped them off was a stack of photographs found by a mechanic on a truck that was later traced to Franklin. These pictures showed Suzanne's sexual abuse from the time she was just 4 years old. At 79, he is on death row at the Union Correctional Facility in Florida.